It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 16, Pyramids of Mars. And I also talk about Revenge of the Cybermen, and I get into a little bit of Terror of the Zygons. And there's also talk about Planet of Evil. So, you know, it's like a forfer. It's a forfer.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Toby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's like a person, you see.
Resulting reaction, describe it. Are you ready?
Hey, Dan. Why, you didn't like my exhale to start us off?
It's the old Doctor Who show.
That's right, where Dan and I watch old episodes of Doctor Who and review them. How are you today, Dan?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I feel like I got a cold or something.
Yeah, I mean,
something going on.
You look like
I feel
hell.
like I had one of those flu shots. Probably not. Maybe not a good idea.
That's government mind control.
How are you?
I'm okay. Things are going well.
Yeah. I still haven't watched any of the new show at all.
This season at all?
Yeah, I haven't seen. I saw the first
Right.
first three, I guess.
Right.
Well, see, the thing, I canceled my cable, sort of. I don't have a cable box.
I mean, you just stopped paying, right?
I stopped paying. I was like, F that. So I haven't had a chance, like I don't have a way of watching video on demand.
Yeah.
And I don't, download torrents or anything like that. So I'm probably going to wait. At this point, I'm probably going to wait until it appears on Hulu or Netflix or something. I know you buy the iTunes.
Yeah, that's going to be a good 6 months until they're up there.
Yeah, I could probably wait.
Yeah.
Has it been good?
It has been good, I think.
Yeah.
I really like what Capaldi's been doing. I think he's made some really cool choices, and he's a much more likable Doctor now. The whole Sonic sunglasses, whatever.
So they're keeping that. I mean, I did
keeping
watch
it.
the first three, and
they are keeping it. It's a real thing. But I guess actually in the last two seasons, they haven't been relying on the Sonic so much as they were in the Tennant years. It was, I guess, through all of it really.
Yeah,
but those years there was a lot of Sonic.
Seems to be it.
They kind of played it down a bit, but I don't know. We have sound effects.
I got a little sound effect, and that was full on real slide whistle. I'm not hitting a button.
No.
That was for real.
Guys, I could see it happen.
I do all practical effects.
He's a real Foley artist.
Yeah. So anyway, it sounds like it's kept up, because I know when it first came back, you were real into it. So it's consistently been good.
It's consistently been good.
Yeah.
This last one was a really interesting idea, pretty well done. I'm a little confused. I wanted to actually ask you about it, but you're not up to date.
Yeah,
so
I haven't watched it. If
months.
I do catch up, I will let you know. I've been watching a lot of old Doctor Who, Dan.
Oh, I haven't been watching any. My dog just came home from the hospital. He has a huge scar along his knee, or whatever the equivalent of a dog is, and he's tried to move around and just started whimpering. So.
Does he have a big lampshade on his head?
Oh, yeah, he's full on. He's
because that's
where is he?
That's probably why. Oh, there he is. Hey, buddy.
Yeah. So. Anyway.
Hey, Buster. That's Buster,
That's
right?
Buster.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Anyway.
So as I was saying, was we had talked about doing Revenge of the Cybermen.
Right.
And it wasn't available anywhere. I did find it, so I watched it, and it's not that good.
Oh, okay, great.
It wasn't that good. There was a couple of cool things about it, like they introduced these characters on this gold planet. I don't know. Do you know anything about that storyline? No. And it's not worth really going into too many details, but it kind of had too many ideas going on. So you had the Cybermen, and then you had the Ark, and the whole thing, they returned to the Ark, right? And the Ark, as we know it, was housing all these humans. When they get back there, it's 1,000 years before that took place.
Oh.
And the Ark is not used as an Ark. It's more of a... I forget exactly because it's been a while now since I've seen it. But I think it was monitoring... this planet got too close to Jupiter. and was now in Jupiter's orbit.
Okay.
And so the Ark, or whatever they were calling it, Space Station Nerva, or
right, yeah.
whatever,
That's right.
was monitoring the planet and making sure other ships would keep them away from hitting the planet.
Okay.
Because it was not on any of the star charts.
Okay.
Meanwhile, this planet is full of these gold people, and there's this whole thing with someone on the space station and dealing with the Cybermen, and there was this whole double cross thing. It wasn't as bad. Like, I had heard it wasn't good.
How did the Cybermen look? Because we've only seen them, I think, once in our reviews to this point. And
they looked fine, and I think it was a new, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a new design for them in this particular storyline.
Yeah.
It's not worth watching. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. Like, you go out and find it.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, because I thought that it was going to end that whole season, and we had talked about how, we had done Robot, so why didn't we do the whole thing?
Sure.
That's actually not the last episode of that storyline.
Oh, okay.
And I think that episode was written, or maybe even filmed prior to them, coming up with the whole, original run.
Okay.
The real last episode of that storyline, which I also watched, is called Terror of the Zygons, and that was much better. That I would actually recommend that you do watch. And to my knowledge, I think that was supposed to be the last episode of that season.
Wait, Terror of the Zygons.
Yeah, that's the opening of the season I think we're doing now.
Right. Okay.
And again, if I don't want to spoil it,
Gotcha.
because we're supposed to be doing Pyramids of Mars.
Yep.
So if you don't want to hear spoilers, just skip ahead. But actually, if you watch Pyramids of Mars, you'll notice that Harry is gone. So this is the episode where you see, why that happens. It returns to Unit. It closes up everything they started from Robot. So it's actually I would recommend that you find it and watch it.
Actually, I kind of like to go back and watch that just to kind of wrap that thing up.
I would definitely recommend watching it.
All right.
It's really cool. It's about the Loch Ness Monster. The Zygons are these weird sort of whispering enemy. Who wants some of this? Or how it is, Dan. I wish we had actually done that one because I think it's worth people finding. And there's even one after that, which I did watch, which is on Hulu, which is also awesome, called Planet of Fear?
Planet of Evil.
Yeah, Planet of Evil, which you should watch.
Okay.
That's very cool.
All right.
And that is on Hulu. So that's basically it. We're all up to speed at this point.
Fantastic.
We can get into. But then you find it was weird, and you started watching Periods of Mars. That's a whole other.
It's an after school.
I'm not going to make a Red Planet joke.
I'm so glad you didn't. That would have been in poor taste.
That would be not appropriate.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, because Harry's gone.
I didn't think it was necessarily weird because I knew we were jumping time, and that's happened so frequently in our run of reviews that these guys are gone now. I'm continuing on. But what do you say? You want to just jump right into it?
Yep, let's do it. Hit the button, Dad.
Where are they going?
Set up a deflection field around the house. He's obviously planned every step.
Who, Marcus?
Oh, Sutek. Sutek is breaking free from his ancient bonds. If he succeeds, he'll destroy the whole world.
You mean Sutek is still alive?
He destroyed his own planet, Vesta Osiris, and left a trail of havoc across half the galaxy. Horus and the rest of the Osirians must have finally cornered him on Earth.
In Egypt?
The wars of the gods entered into mythology. The whole of Egyptian culture is founded upon the Osirian pattern.
I'm afraid this is beyond me.
Yes, beyond me, too.
Ah. Found it.
What?
The lodestone that drew the TARDIS off course.
That's not a lodestone. That's just a sarcophagus.
Yeah, it isn't. It's the entrance to a time-space tunnel.
Leading where?
To Sutek.
All right, so it's Pyramids of Mars, 1975. This story was written by Stephen Harris. Or was it, Dan?
It's a pseudonym. It could have been written by Louis Griefer or Robert Holmes.
Robert Holmes, yes.
Anyone.
I guess from what I had read, the original script was unworkable. So they actually,
It doesn't show.
Robert Holmes ended up just rewriting almost the whole thing. I don't know if there was anything from the original version that actually made it into what we saw. Directed by Patty Russell. The quick, brief thing here is an archaeologist excavates a pyramid and he happens to fall under the control of Sutek, an ancient member of the race of Assyrians. Osarians. Osiris Eons.
Yes.
Osari. Yeah, I'm sorry to say. So basically the Doctor and Sarah see a vision of Sutek in his pure form, which causes the TARDIS to land at the home of this archaeologist, where Sutek is already making his plans to escape this prison. So that's it. Good night, everybody.
Nailed it.
So worn
again.
out from talking about all those other episodes. What did you think of Pyramids of Mars, Dan?
I think overall it was a really good episode. I don't know, maybe better than average. I think the villains were really interesting. I like Sutek. I like the whole mind control thing, the reanimation of the professor, using him as a corpse mobile.
Right. Yeah, it's very much like an old horror movie, old mummy horror movie.
Yeah, I expected Abbott and Costello
Deal.
to make a quick appearance there, but
Did you know that the house that they shot the exteriors was owned by Mick Jagger?
at the time, wow.
Pretty cool.
Wow. So if we go back and look at the footage, could we possibly see him in a window?
You could see him in the bushes, peering around the bushes.
It's fantastic.
I love the, speaking of Sutek, like, whenever they were casting Sutek, like, what are you going to do in this episode? All right, we got you the job. You're going to sit on a folding chair in a tiny room with some my brother's blacklight posters behind you. That's all the guy did. He'd never even when he's about to get out at the end, he doesn't make it.
No, he
He's just
stands up.
stuck in that
He
room.
gets to stand up. That was the range of motion.
Yeah.
Sutek
in the folding chair. But yeah, I probably maybe I like this a little bit more than you. Sounds like you felt it was sort of an average, pretty decent episode.
Yeah.
But I liked it a lot. I thought the mummy creatures, or robots rather, were really cool. I thought the acting was great. It was just a lot of fun. I found this episode to be a lot of fun. And they did a lot with very little.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that they had that one scene when they're trying to deactivate the protective gate, and it's the Doctor and Sarah, and there's literally they're in the woods, and they have like an invisible wall,
Right.
And just like an old what are those things called, like burial urn?
Yeah,
that they're trying to open, and it's this like incredibly tense moment. But if you it's ridiculous. It's like two people just alone in the woods with no set at all.
Yeah.
Like they just made it invisible. I thought worked really well. I thought they pulled it off.
The only this is so minor, and I wish that wasn't something that bothers me. The props and the sets were really pretty bad. I mean, a lot of it was.
Are you talking about like the
pyramid? Like the sarcophagi? Sure. All the sarcophaguses, they look very much like they were taken from a community theater. They were
likely.
Hey, let's save some money. I mean, they weren't all that great when they go into. When they finally do go to Mars and are in the pyramid and going from room to room and solving the puzzles, whatever. I think the walls were painted to look like stone, but they were really obvious. They just looked
well, especially when they go to. Are you talking when they go to Mars?
When they're in Mars,
too?
yeah. That's
especially where it's like, is that a mountain?
Yeah.
Or is that part of the?
What is that supposed to be?
That was pretty bad.
Yeah. So those things
give
kind
you
of pull
that.
me out of it a little bit, but the story was great and the acting was superb, especially the professor who is taking over, not Dr. Warlock. What's his?
You're talking about the original guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Scarman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's his name.
So, I mean, he was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, that whole opening where you just get the great stock footage of the pyramids and people in Egypt.
Did you
and
see
then
Indiana
just cut
Jones?
To him selling it.
Indy was in the background.
Oh, right, yeah, totally.
There were a couple of moments, classic Doctor Who fashion, and I know this is a period thing. It was taking place in the 1800s, but when in that open, the professor is in the tomb. He's excavating. They find the door, and the inscription glows. So all of his Egyptian helpers start running away.
And the Eye of Horus is freaking out. I mean, they know.
And he calls them savages.
Well, yes. That's
like-
not. They've been saying that from the
Ooh,
beginning. Yep.
perfect.
Right.
Yeah. But again, it was a different period.
Another note that I thought was interesting and I didn't realize was what year what year is the unit stuff taking place? Because Sarah Jane refers to going back to the 80s, and then they go to the 80s, and you see the 80s exactly as I remember it, this nightmare hellscape of rain and lightning.
Reagan
But,
years,
so
am I right?
The whole time she's from the 80s, so have we been in the 80s?
Yeah, I don't know. This is the
Instead
first
of like
time-
when the show is 1975, this is this episode.
This is the
so-
first time she says I'm from 1980, and then they go to
Right.
1980. Yeah, that bothered
So
me as
that-
well. I had no idea that they weren't contemporaneous whenever they were in the previous seasons working
Right.
with a unit. I thought that was all.
Yeah, and I had always thought that too, but then I was thinking, I'm like, well, maybe they've never stated the year.
In the ones
Or is
that
it just
we've
a-
seen, they've never
Yeah.
explicitly stated it, as far as I can remember.
So that was an
Yeah,
interesting thing,
definitely.
and a great look at what the 80s look like if Sutek manages to get elected to office. We talked about the sets or whatever, and I don't want to bring it back to Planet of Evil, but I'm going to bring it back to Planet of
Let's
Evil
do it.
because that had some of the best sets ever. Like they did this whole Jungle Planet thing that I think you would love.
I'll flip my lid.
It was a big contrast. So maybe I don't know if it's an allocation of budget money.
Yeah.
And they had to go full on plywood to when they went to Mars, because it did look like the pyramids of Mars were painted by children.
Yes.
It was-
Yeah. But, I mean, they did have the really cool effects. I mean, cool for the time. It was effective. But in the pyramid, you'd have painted wall and then an open space where they had, like, all these special effects going on. This pattern was flowing by. So
Yeah.
maybe they just blew the budget on the green screens on that. But
Yeah, it was very, very trippy.
Yeah.
With some of the
especially like
Sutek stuff.
So Sutek is trapped in this pyramid, and he's
Yeah.
being held in place by a beam that is
like
functioning on
a
radio
beam
waves
from Mars.
from a pyramid
Yes.
on Mars that's keeping him in place. And the way that he's able to communicate between the pyramid in Egypt and the house, which eventually becomes UNIT's headquarters on those grounds.
Yes.
Is through the space-time
sarcophagus.
vortex.
Yeah. Right. So there's some kind of tunnel, space-time tunnel
Although I guess it would
from
just be
Egypt to England via that
Is
sarcophagus.
it just a space
Rainbow
tunnel?
Bridge.
Yes, it was just the Rainbow Bridge. It's just a space tunnel.
It's some
Is
kind
he
of
supposed to be
worm
in
tunnel.
the past? Or so- you call it a space-time tunnel. I don't know.
Oh yeah, well, yes, I think right because
don't know.
the archaeologist in the beginning is 1910. Now, at the time that we see the other, I can't remember the character's name, but they just refer to him as the Egyptian.
Yeah,
That is 1910 as well, right?
1911.
Or is that? So that's okay.
I mean,
so maybe it's
fair
not
enough,
a time tunnel at all. It's just a.
But you're right. That's what they call it. Was a space-time tunnel. But anyway,
right.
I guess it's all space-time is the same thing.
So he was in Egypt, and they sent him over to set the shop
Yeah,
up.
to bring back all these artifacts and whatnot. But I guess presumably, really, the sarcophagus
Right.
was the most important thing. So that
And I like the whole, the as I mentioned, like the mummies that were robots, and they look like they were built by doozers, on from Fraggle Rock. You know what I mean? Like when they take it apart, you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
There looks like some kind of erector set.
yeah, that seemed overly complicated for what it needed to be.
Kind of like the whole thing was kind of overly complicated, but I did like the Osiris mythology.
Yeah.
Making them sort of these space supreme beings
Right.
that have, landed on Earth, and then the Egyptians have incorporated them into their religion.
Right. But that any one of them, like Sutek or Horus or any of them, any one of them is an unbelievably powerful entity in the universe. And the only way that Sutek could be stopped, and not killed, just stopped, was by all the rest of them stopping him.
Yeah.
It was,
And what was so cool about, to follow that thought, was this episode, or this story rather, I really felt like the Doctor was no match at all for Sutek.
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you really thought that he was going to lose, and he really did. I mean, at one point, his mind was controlled.
Yeah.
So you really had a sense of high stakes and danger and everything else, more so than I think that we've ever had him face in terms of an adversary.
Without a doubt. I mean, usually whenever he's coming up against some sort of alien enemy, and he says that he's a Time Lord, there's some recognition there, and usually some fear or something like, I know what you guys are and what you do. But this guy just laughed at him. Just, I'll just...
Yeah. Well, it was funny, too, because he was like, where are you from? And the doctor's like, Gallifrey. He's like, give me the actual binary space coordinates from Galactic Zero Center. Right? And then he tells him, and he goes, oh, I've heard of it.
Right.
Have you heard of it? Because 2 minutes ago, you clearly had never heard of this. So I thought that was
Yeah. No, I totally know who you are. So, yeah.
And like there was just the other cool thing when he sends, I guess when Sutekh is trying to goes to Mars, and he's trying to dismantle there's like all these booby traps on Mars in order to get to the Eye of Horus or whatever that's holding him there.
The Central Command.
And like how frustrating and annoying would it be to do a puzzle like that? He's like, all right, now move the block. No, the one on the right. Move it five pegs up, and now wait. Like you could tell, like you see this really complicated puzzle, and you're like, oh, this is gonna take like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And the whole puzzle is like you just pick the right thing.
Go 4 up and 5 over. You got it. Right. You're good.
The Eye of Horus, man.
I thought it was interesting too. There was a thing with one of the professor's friends. Oh, I guess it was Dr. Warlock. He had invented basically a radio telescope.
Oh, his brother?
It was his brother.
That's
right.
Sorry.
That's right. It was his brother. Had invented a radio telescope, which, I mean, this has happened a couple of times in other storylines that, you know, some random guy has invented a thing that shouldn't exist in that timeline yet, and it is, but that's usually more of a major feature of the plot than anything else. In this case, there was no explanation for it. This is just a guy who happened to invent a radio telescope, and I don't know. I found that very, very strange. That was. I mean, it was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, just to figure out that it was that the signal was coming from Mars, right? That was the whole.
I mean, I'm no science fiction writer, so I don't know how else you would get to that point. But it seemed like it was unremarked upon. Just that's cool.
Oh, but you also got the old one guy is lying and one guy tells the truth gag.
Right.
You always got the Knights and Knaves. I think is the original puzzle.
Right.
That you had fans of Labyrinth.
That's what I was going to say. That was the first time I ever encountered it. But she got it wrong and fell into an oubliette. So, too bad. But yeah, he just blew right past that. It's like, oh yeah, the answer is this. All right, cool. Moving on. It
was cool. Like I despite some of the issues you pointed out as far as like the sets and budget and stuff, I love all of that stuff. Like I love all the puzzles and the fact that it was like the last level of a game or something where they have to get through all these stages until they get to the end, and then you have another. It's like I imagine somebody was sitting in a meeting. I was like, well, how are we going to tell like the good mummies from the bad mummies? And they're like, just take gold leaf and wrap the good guys in gold.
Yeah,
because they have like a pretty gold thing, and otherwise it's the same dude.
Yep.
Like, all right, yeah, come on, bring Pete over here and just put this thing on him. Really cool way, I thought too. And I know we're sort of all over the place, but I loved how they trapped Sutekh.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just really smart. That the expanded the amount of time, like he asked, like, how old are you, or how old will you live to be, or whatever, and he expanded the distance.
He moved the end of the
time it takes to get through the gateway, so he made it so long that he would just age to death and die.
Right, he gets trapped inside
I thought that was really, really cool. The way they played with, it takes this amount of time for something to reach us from Mars.
For the radio wave to make it.
So there was logic to the whole thing, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's probably one of the smarter things they've done in the...
Yeah. Then they let the whole place burn to the ground.
Why not? Did you catch the reference that he made?
Interesting.
We better get out of here. He made a reference to the Great London Fire of 1655, and Sarah's just like, oh, wait. So it's one of these other things where the doctor is, instrumental or caused great tragedies in the history of Earth. Was at least present, if not the direct cause.
And I guess previously in unit history, have we heard about a fire? And then this was where the fire came from? Because they mentioned that in this episode, like, there had been a fire. Was that only mentioned in this episode, or was it a previous?
Yeah, I don't recall that coming up before, but I caught Sarah saying that at the beginning, that, oh, yes, this must be the place because of... Right. Yeah. But I don't know that it was ever mentioned before.
Yeah, I don't know. What do we have? What else do you have on this episode? Why this episode's going too quickly, Dan?
Oh,
feel
well,
like I
here's another thing. I'm just gonna
Mars myself.
I'm probably gonna keep mentioning this every
doing
time.
it.
That I'm so glad it was a 4-part episode and not a 4-part story instead of a 6-part story, because I could have seen this one going really south if they had a couple more episodes in here. This one again, like I feel like they finally found like this is as much as we need. You know, whatever it ends up being, an hour and 15, an hour and 20 is all they need to tell the story. They don't need to stretch it out so far. But
No,
this really could have been one that went real bad.
Yeah, it
if
works
they kept
really
going.
well as a 4-part. I'm trying to think if there was any periods where it felt like it was dragging, and I think it was pretty.
No, I thought it was tight the whole way.
It was pretty.
And there was a lot going on. Like the Sutek wanted them to create a missile that could then fire at the pyramid, so they had to try to stop the missile. So the Doctor dresses up as one of the
he goes
as the
undercover.
robots.
He pulls that up
Beautifully.
What's wrong with your circuitry?
Sarah wrapped that.
What?
She wrapped him up perfectly because he looked identical to all the others.
Yeah, and Sarah got to take the shot.
Uh-huh.
That was another really cool moment
Yep.
too. So she blows up the explosive on the rocket pad or what have you, and
Taking
Sutek
the gun and saying, "I know what to do," just showing
Right.
She's got this
Right.
nerve and resolve, and
Sutek uses all of his power to contain the explosion.
Yep.
Was another really cool trick. So you sort of had a ticking time bomb of a bomb that's already gone off.
yeah,
And that's when the Doctor has to go there to distract him, which is great. 'Cause isn't it distracting just walking in?
Yep.
Does he say so? It's like, "Hey, Sutek, your pants are on fire." Like,
Right.
what is he? Does he say? And then the whole thing explodes.
Yeah.
Which was great. I do miss Harry though. This is what we're going to get for a while. I think is just the two of them, and they
Yeah.
work really well together.
Of course, yeah.
But I did like when we had three players versus the two.
yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I agree. How much longer do we have with the in our run? Do we have with these two? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I'll tell you in 1 second.
I mean, I'm
gotta go to the
watching these
schedule.
all for the first time as well, so I don't even know a lot of the history.
Brain of Morbius,
Oh.
Seeds of Doom, Mask of Mandragora, and I'm probably gonna
No, you're
assume
saying
I'm
it just
saying
right.
that And Hand of Fear is the last Sarah Jane episode.
Okay.
So, not many. 1, 2,
And does-
3, 4.
Does Tom Baker continue on without her with the new companion
Yes.
before return?
Yes.
Okay. Oh no, that's right. I did see the episode. I saw at least the scene when Sarah Jane leaves the Doctor. So I guess I knew my own answer to that one. My bad.
Okay.
All right.
But yeah, again, for anybody that hadn't seen it, I would also recommend watching Planet of Evil. I wish we did Planet of Evil because I'd like to talk about that one with you right now.
All right.
Oh, we could, but no, it's already Tuesday, and this episode has to go up tomorrow.
Ah, son of a. All
But that
right.
was really cool, and it's really spooky, and it had great music, and it was like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type scenario. It's like this colony on the edge of the universe between matter and antimatter. It's very cool. Don't laugh at me, Dan. I really like that episode.
The only reason I'm laughing is that we're gonna review as many episodes as possible in
I'm
any
gonna
one.
fit them all in. Well, that's
podcast.
the thing. I freaked out because it takes me, the 3 weeks that we go between of our
Mm-hmm.
podcast episodes to watch one, whereas I watch 3, so they're all like. If you're gonna get your own Doctor Who podcast, I wouldn't recommend doing that because it's very hard when you're as dumb as I am to separate the stuff and they all start mixing together.
Oh no, this is
Because I sat
constant
and
for
watched
me.
3, which is a lot for me.
No, constantly for me. I'm getting the old Doctor Who and that week's current Who mixed up. I was going to reference a line that the new Who, but it had nothing to do with it. But anyway,
All right, so in conclusion,
Timey-wimey.
I would say this is an A+ or
are we
thumbs
doing that
up
now?
episode.
are we
Yes,
doing?
we started a new
oh.
review system.
Great.
It's an A+
On my
episode,
scale, I'm going to give this.
but my scale actually goes up to F.
Sure.
So it's
Sure.
a different way of looking at things.
I'm rating this one fuchsia.
B.
It's a color scale that is completely incomprehensible to anyone but me.
I'm going to rate this one.
Ooh, not bad.
My new sound
I like
based thing.
Yep.
No, Daddy. That was my creep scale. that I've been. Oh, Dan, you're crying teary blood eyes.
Oh.
So yeah,
Okay.
we all like this episode.
Everyone loved it.
Excellent. Next up for fans of the show. Man, I told you I was sick, right? I mentioned that in this episode.
So much cough
it'll
syrup.
all add up later.
Okay. We got
Next up, we have 3 weeks from tomorrow, November 18th, when this goes up, is
Brain of
Reign
Morbius.
of Morbius, an episode I've never seen. I've heard very good things about this storyline. I say that all the time. Episode.
It's a
I
story.
shouldn't say episode. It's story because they're made of multiple episodes.
For
You know
those
what
of
I
you
mean, fans
playing
and
along at
friends.
home, as of this recording, Brain of Morbius is available on Hulu Plus. So
Yes.
get on that.
I am really looking forward to seeing this one again. I've heard very good things. And if you want to follow along with us, you can go to the old Doctor Who show.com and
can-
hit subscribe, and then
Yep.
you will automatically get these episodes. You don't need to Google or search
That's
or
disgusting.
hope one of your friends shares it on Facebook, because if they loved us, they would.
Right. No, go to iTunes, get it for yourself, and if you like it, leave us a nice little comment.
Yeah,
That'd be
leave us a
fantastic.
review. Did we get any new reviews?
I was
don't
just
think we did.
Probably not. Because
Remember, if you do a review, we're gonna comment on it. Nope. Still
still
love you, Kevin Scruggs, but
still
nothing
giving you
from,
much love.
from you losers. The rest of you, I don't know what your excuse is. You don't have time for that. Come on.
Wow, wow.
Write us at the old Doctor Who show at gmail.com, and we'll tell you dating advice. I mean, I don't care. You can ask us whatever, and I will absolutely answer it.
It's absolutely true.
Ask me anything. Mm-hmm. What else, Dan? You got anything else?
You can follow me on the Twitter if you want to at DanJNJ.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, although I've kind of stopped using Twitter. I'm just not feeling it, Dan.
Is it? Moved on
I
to
still do
another
occasionally,
platform,
but-
or
I don't know. I just like, what is the point? What am I doing?
don't start questioning things like that.
I
Everything
know.
falls apart.
But I am EGRISSOM. I'm not as active on that, but that's fine if you.
What's
follow
going on with the comic books?
me. Nothing. I got nothing going on.
All right, you had a whole lot
Nothing
going on at once.
new out.
I think it's time
I
to take
got
a break.
Nothing.
Good for you.
Nothing. No, I'm not. It's just it takes forever. I have stuff like in the works, but by the time it comes out, it'll be next year. So.
Right on. Cool.
But you can still buy the old stuff, friends. You could still go right there
get
to
some Dead Horse.
ericgrissom.com
Get some
and you
Planet
can get some,
Gigantic.
get some Dead Horse, Planet Gigantic, get some Gregory Suicide. I got a bunch of free comics on there.
Are you continuing Gregory
Why
Suicide?
aren't I writing Doctor Who comics? Right? Are they
Yuck.
bad? I've never read a Doctor Who
Yuck.
comic in my life, but they just announced. Now I think it's the Tom Baker, right? I think. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see.
I guess he's got the Tom. You know, they always have a doctor or whatever. I don't know. It's Titan is the publisher that does it. They're not going to hire me.
I'm glad you got that out of the way in advance.
That's so sad. Were we saying Gregory Suicide? I am pitching to or sending out to.
I was just wondering if
publishers,
you're going to continue the story of it because I thought it was
Yeah, I'm going to
pretty
try
awesome.
to find a publisher for it, and if I can't, then I'll just self-publish it.
Yeah, it was a
That's how
great
I roll,
book.
my friend.
Word. All right,
right.
folks.
Well, good talk, Dan. We'll see you again in 3 weeks when we do the Brain of Morbius.
Sounds
Is it
like fun.
Morbius? Or
Morbius.
Morbidus.
More.
I think there's a D in there. Morbidus?
Well, we have written down Morbius on
Because
ours.
I think Morbius the living vampire. Oh, it is Morbius?
That's what we have written down,
Well, that's probably.
and we're probably not right.
I think we're probably right. Yeah, it is Morbius. That was also the living vampire. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I do.
Spider-Man, and then he had his own series.
Yeah,
All right, friends.
we're done.
I'm just tired. All right, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
robots, you know?